Hi and welcome to another video. In this video I want to show you how you can pass variables into Docker containers and use them as environment variables. If you want to see how to do this, stay tuned. The simplest and easiest way to pass environment variables into a Docker container is through the run command. For this example, I simply will use an Alpine image. The command that I'm running is a docker run in interactive mode, remove the container once the container stops, and the --env space and then the variable name equals, and then the value of the variable will pass the variable into the Docker container. Then I'm telling it here what container to run, and then I'm passing in the command to print the environment variables, and I'm grepping for my variable. So let's go ahead and run this. And you'll see here I'm running my Alpine image and it's grepping for my var1 and it's equal to value 1. If we want to pass multiple variables into our container, I'm running the same command. I just need to declare the environment variable twice. First time here, it's my var1 value 1, and then I'm declaring another environment variable, my var2 value 2. And I've changed here my grep command to grep everything that starts with my var. So let's run this command. And you will see here, my variables have been passed into the Docker container and they are evaluated correctly. Entering the variable names and the values in the run command, if you have a lot of variables, can be quite cumbersome. So what you can do is we can actually put all our variables into a file. So in my case, I called my file myvariables.txt, and then here is the contents of this file. The first row here is a comment, and then I have my var 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then I have a value 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each variable name and value needs to be on a separate line, and then you can go ahead and create your list. So how do you use this? I will show you next. To use our variable file, we will run again a docker run tirm, and then rather than a --env, we'll pass a --env-file flag, and then we give it our variable list name, in my case myvariables.txt, and then again I'm running an Alpine image, I'm printing the environment variables, and I'm grepping for my variables or my var so that all my variables will be displayed. So let's run this command. And you see here all my variables from my variable file have been passed into the Docker container, and I can display them right here. These first two examples were how we can pass in variables into the docker run command. But what if you want to build a container that has actually different environment variables? So what we can do here is we can actually include the creation and the environment variables in our Docker file, and we can pass the values in during our Docker build. I will show you how that looks like. Here is my Docker file. I'm again using simply Alpine latest. And now what I have to do is I have to create arguments, or I have to declare my arguments. These are the arguments that I will pass in when I'm running my Docker build. And then I'm taking the values that I'm passing in here and I am declaring them here as an environment variable. So my docker build command will look like that I pass in a value for my var1, one for my var2 and 3. And then here I am saying within my Docker container, my environment variable, my var1 should have the value that was passed in here, and so forth. Then I'm just running apk update, and then I'm running the command print env pipe to grep, and then my var to output the values of my variables. And here is my docker build command. I'm running a docker build, use the in the current directory present docker file, and then I gotta pass in a --build arg, and then I give it the arg name. And as you may remember, In the Docker file, I have my var1, my var2, and my var3, and then I'm giving it the value here. So build arg1, or the first one, is my var1. That will be value 1. Then I got to pass the next one in. My var2 will be value 2, and then my var3 will be value 3. And then I'm calling my container simply my variables version 1.0.0. Very straightforward, very simple. If I hit enter now, you'll see it will just build my container, and it has been built. And next, you don't see the end of the screen. I apologize for that. I will clear my screen. And next, let's go ahead and run the container and see if our variables truly have been populated with the values, and we can display them. Because I'm running my print env pipe to grep my var in my Docker container as a command, that means it will execute that command every time the Docker container starts. I do not need to do anything other than just running a docker run, interactive mode, remove when the container stops, and then I just give it the container that I want to run. So let's do that. And you see here my variables that I've passed into my container while building my image are displayed, and the values have been populated appropriately too. And of course, even though I have populated my container or the values for my variables in the build command, I can still go ahead and add variables to it in the run command if I would like to, and I will show you that that works as well. I will use the example of the variables file. I've updated my variables file, and I've just made my variables 11, 22, 33, and 44, and I've appropriately changed the values here for demo purposes. But if we pass this file in now, you will see that this will work equally as we did at the very beginning when we just had our Docker run. So if I run this now, Docker run tirm, and I'm passing in my environment file, and I'm taking the environment variables that we've created during the build command. If we're running this, you will see all my values have been displayed. What I want to point out though is when declaring the environment variables during the build process, that bears a problem. Especially when one considers passing in passwords as environment variables. And I will show you what I mean by that. If I'm running a simple Docker images, I know I have a lot of images here, and we do a Docker inspect, and we inspect our my variables image, I will just grab here the image ID, and if we take a look at the inspect here, and if I'm going through the results, you will see here that anybody who has access to your environment in which the Docker container runs and has the permissions to run the appropriate commands, they will be able to see the variable values in plain text. So passing in passwords like this is not a good idea. But for configuration variables, possibly this is a very good idea that you can do this, to either pass them in the run command or to go ahead and pass your variable values in the build command. And lastly, I would like to show you how you can pass in a variable from your host. So if you do not want to create, for example, a variable file and you don't want to type it all out, but you do have, for example, the variables and the variable values on your local host, how you can use that in the build command or even in a Docker run command. And I'll show you real quick. I have created a local variable, and I called this my local variable. And if I print this out, you see I just call it from host. Okay, that's the value of my local variable. So I'll show you how you can pass that in. And if you want to use your local variable that you have on your host and you want to pass that in to the Docker container through the run command, I have just created here the same run command, docker run tirm. I have my env for environment flag, and then I'm calling it a variable from host, so var from host, and this is then equals $ curly brace my local variable, which is my local variable name here, and I'm passing this in, And then I'm just doing again on the Alpine image a print env pipe to grep, and then I'm pulling the vars. And if we're taking a look at it, you see here it passed it in from the host straight through into the Docker container, and there is my variable available. And to show you how you can do the same thing in the Docker build command, I have just added a fourth variable here for simplicity, so I don't have to retype everything. The Docker file itself is exactly the same as it was previously. Alpine latest, my variable args, my environment variables here, run the APK update, and then just print the environments my vars. And then in the Docker build command, I'm running exactly the same build command as I did before. And here I've just added my var4 and then equals dollar curly brace, my local variable curly brace, and I'm tagging my image and I'm giving it a new version 1.1.0. So let's run that. And once it's completed, we will go ahead and run our image and we'll see if it worked. And here is my command to run the image. Let's go ahead and do that. And you see here my var4 is now populated with from host. This is how you can pass variables into a Docker container. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you liked the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up or a subscription, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.